Welcome everybody, you've seen the title. Now let's talk about why you shouldn't be using mosaic to pixelate your text. Let's talk about how it works first, and then a bit of the history, and then I'll explain why it's worse than ever now with the age of AI. So as you can see here, I've got my Excalibur. Let's draw a box. So you got your box. Let's get you 4 boxes. These are my 4 boxes. Essentially, these represent the pixel in the image. So you got your larger image. One might be red. One might be green. We'll go with this one being black, and then this one being red. So essentially, what happens when you pixelate something using mosaic is it looks at these. It draws a box around all of them. We'll go with this being yellow, and it kind of says. It goes over it. It goes over this line by line and looks at each of the pixels in the box, like the 4 of them that are here. And it essentially says what pixel is used the most. So in this one, it's black. So out it returns a black box. And essentially that happens for every row. So this happens for every row in the video, for every row in the photo or the video. And essentially compresses it down. It's essentially compressing down the photo so you only see parts of it. And then you end up with what is essentially a blocky image. So we can look at that if we look at this one. So this is the pixelated image. This is the original. And you can see how it's done it. So if you zoom in, it's combined... It's combined what are already quite grainy. Let's find something we know what we're looking at. This is the top corner this is my head. It's combined the pixels in my head, like it's put all my hair into a few pixels. By looking at them, maybe looking at a few, and it keeps doing that to make it smaller. Essentially, this is compacting it down, a bit like how compression works when you're compressing an image. But let's talk a bit about the history. So it started out in film. They started out doing sort of compression-y sort of to make it look like you were looking at something through somebody else's eyes. And then later on, this kind of developed. Like in reality TV, sort of in the 90s, they sort of used it as a blur for privacy. And back then, that was probably fine. You were probably concealing stuff well enough that you couldn't see it. Back when Google came out with Google Maps and Google Street View, people were concerned. They didn't want their houses, they didn't want their faces, their license plates on Google Street View. So Google rolled it out worldwide, a way of covering up what's there, but still allowing you to get an idea of what's there, if that makes sense. So they blurred out houses, faces, whatever. These days you can request to have your house blurred out. That became the start of the mass blurring using the mosaic effect. This kind of cemented it as being the go-to blur method. It's better than like scratching it out and it being obviously scratched out. Sometimes it looks a bit less obvious. Now that we have AI, we have some problems. It's going wrong. AI is good. And it can calculate and anticipate what built up these photos and these large pixels. Some researchers in 2020 came out with Depix. This essentially depixelated any censored images. It inversed the process. It wasn't perfect, but it did a good job. It's easier if you've got frames. So let's have a look at that. So if you've got frames, so you've got this frame number 1, but actually what happens is the user moves along, this becomes that, and then this becomes that, and then I don't know, this goes orange. So as the users moved, oh, that should be black. As the users moved along, they've moved the thing around, it's pixelated a different part of it, and output now comes still another black square in this case, but you can use the fact that you have now 2 adjacent pixels. These 2 pixels are known to make up the other 6 pixels. They make up the 6 pixels that we originally had. And actually, if you've got like an item that's moved and how the camera's moved, you can use those interlaced frames to allow you to work out every part of the image. Right now, there's some depixelating software on GitHub. It seems to do quite well. It allows you to depixelate the frames of a video really quickly. You just sort of stick it through some Python code and it looks at the different combinations of how it's been pixelated, it cuts it out. And that kind of says why you shouldn't be using it. And that kind of says why you shouldn't be using it these days. It's just not the way to go. The takeaway here is, don't pixelate your content. Cover it up. Obscure it. The best way is get your piece of paper, have your protected content, and put the paper in front of your content. Then take the photo like that. No pixelation, no reverse engineering could decode what was on my phone. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, there's a button down there for that. Hopefully it's down there. And I will see you in the next one.